We are here today at the corporate offices of the Resan Group, where there's been a breakdown in corporate governance processes. The Resan Group has invested heavily in its digital transformation project, Project Jupiter. Project Jupiter has been commissioned and designed to overcome some business challenges. Challenges including responding to the increased competition, the dynamic conditions of the market environment, and its inability to actually respond in an agile manner. Project Jupiter is partnering with a major systems integrator, Integration Blue, a Big Four consultancy, and a cloud services provider, Cloud IT. Project Jupiter is partnering to design and deploy a major re-engineered business operating platform. This project is a multi-million-dollar undertaking which involves over 200 people and taking place over 2 years. A significant amount of work has been done, and the project has been running for 6 months now. However, an invoice for several hundreds of thousands of dollars has been received from Integration Blue.
I have this invoice here from Integration Blue for $675,000, but I can't match it to any purchase order.
Can you please contact Integration Blue and find out to which part of this claim this contract relates to?
I emailed their billing office. They said it was verbally approved as additional work by our program manager.
I'll have to discuss this with the program manager. Hi.
Hi.
We have an invoice for $675,000, and Integration Blue have said that you've given them the approval, but we have no purchasing authority to bill against the contract.
Well, my understanding was that it was already in the contract, and I didn't approve any additional work, so I don't know why we've been billed. We'll have to check the contract, but that amount is actually well beyond my delegation.
The contract that the steering committee has makes no mention of this, and Integration Blue have misplaced their contract.
We'll just have to have a meeting with Integration Blue. Try and sort it out. Thanks.
So here we have a situation where a significant amount of work has been done, but it's unclear who authorised it, and there's confusion over the contract scope. The problem is, a significant amount of work has been done, and Integration Blue expect to be paid. Resan Group values its relationships with its suppliers and is willing to negotiate a happy solution. However, this situation indicates a breakdown in governance processes, and it raises some fundamental questions, including who made the decision? Was this a legitimate decision to have been made? And how could this situation have been avoided? As CFO, you're a member of the steering committee and accountable here. How do you think this scenario arose?
Both we at Resan and Integration Blue are at fault here, as both parties failed to follow the due process and ensure that the work done was within the scope of the Project Jupiter. Project managers of both parties should never have allowed the work to start without pre-approval, but this was never checked.
Given the scale of the project, how will you prevent a similar situation arising again in the future?
Our finance team will draw up a schedule of payments against the work plan that will be authorized by the steering committee. This should have been done during the contract negotiations. We will put this schedule in our payment systems and ensure that this is monitored by the steering committee as a routine reporting item. Any scope change then will require pre-approval before the work can commence. Project managers from both parties will be responsible for this and will make sure that we conduct additional trainings so that all the stakeholders can be aware of these changes in the end.
Organizations invest a lot of money into information technologies. They're also very dependent on information technologies for proper operations. IT governance, or information technology governance, is all about ensuring that the money that organizations invest in information technology actually delivered value, or the expected value, to the organization. IT governance includes important mechanisms. It includes structures such as steering committees that can help organizations track and decide on proper investments in technologies. It includes processes that ensure, again, proper investment and decision-making around information technologies. It includes accountability, so we know who's responsible for what. And it includes measurement. We want to measure how we're progressing toward goals in terms of investment in technologies and how we perform in terms of our plan. IT governance is not a responsibility of one person. It's actually the joint responsibility of the board and executives. And together, boards and executives try to achieve two things with IT governance. They need to ensure with IT governance that they minimize or mitigate risks related to information technologies. They should try to increase the value that they get out of investment in information technologies. IT governance involves 5 key activities or areas of activity. The first one is risk management. Organizations need to ensure that they minimize the risks related to investment in information technologies and to threats by new information technologies. The second area is resource management. Organizations need to ensure that they have the means and the processes required to acquire the needed information technologies. The third one is value extraction or value management. Organizations need to ensure that they extract value from their investment in technologies. The fourth and fifth areas are performance measurement and strategic alignment. Performance measurement is all about measuring how we are progressing toward our goals in terms of information technology investment and measuring the value extracted from technologies. And strategic alignment is all about ensuring that what we invest in information technologies actually contributes toward the strategic direction of the organization. Fortunately for us, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are frameworks out there that tell us what they need to do in order to govern information technologies. The most commonly used ones are ITIL and COBIT. Both of them are similar, but they are complementary. And they tell us what we need to do in terms of the committees we need to set up, the processes that we need to have in place, the monitoring that we need to have in place, and so on, to ensure proper IT governance. Board members do not have frameworks. They have recommended sets of questions that they could use for governing IT. Example questions that they could pose to the executives is, do we have a strategic plan? How often do we update it? And how do we know that we know what to do when something goes wrong?
As chair of the steering committee, you ultimately have accountability for the project Jupiter. How do you think this scenario arose?
Well, our governance processes were overlooked. So now we have a situation where we have an unauthorized payment that would impact the progress of the project. This is something that was not under our control. Both parties are at fault because they did not follow due processes. And now we have an invoice to pay that doesn't have a matching order in the system for it, and we would have to deal with it.
What safeguards and controls do you have in place to ensure that these situations don't arise?
So the steering committee is accountable for the whole process. The way it should work is to initiate a process, we need to have a purchase order in the system, and this purchase order needs to be checked against the contract and the scope of work that was determined, and only then, after it's approved, the transaction can proceed. Of course, this process was not followed in our case.
So here at Reason Group, we've been able to see how a simple issue can disrupt organisational routines. In this case, work was done without proper approval. There were unauthorised payment claims. Time was wasted investigating those claims, and there was disruption to everyday work routines. This scenario highlighted the importance of governance, the need for clear decision-making, and the importance of roles and responsibilities. By implementing a clear governance process, appointing people into roles with clear responsibilities, communicating the policy to all the stakeholders could have avoided a lot of the risks that we've seen arise in this situation. A lesson learned for everybody.